Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Jermaine Greer was just the beginning, and now that 2 women in 1 week are getting treated the same as men, we must call into question if the feminists really, actually, truly want to be treated the same as men. So, with these cancellations in mind, universities threatened with new laws to protect free speech if they fail to do it themselves after Amber Rudd was no-platformed by Oxford students. Yes, Oxford University, the second oldest university in the world, in one form or another, has deplatformed Amber Rudd. Second female in a week, which apparently is too much. And now, would you believe it? Government law is trying to say, hey, we must protect free speech. It's like, hang on there, old British government. You care about freedom of speech? Fucking hell. Isn't this a turn up for the books? Maybe we need to, maybe this is actually a call to push more women to the front lines because, hey, people actually take note when women are affected, but I suppose that's something we've been saying for fucking ever, which is that men are expendable, but women are respected and revered and should be looked after, and we can't have a woman having a bad time. No, that is just not acceptable. We're a civilized people, you see. We don't castigate our women. They have to have the best life of all, and bloody hell, it's a white woman. Fuck no. Jesus Christ, this is far too much. A white woman having to actually go through the slings and arrows of the regular peasants. No, we won't stand for this. So we have Education Secretary Gavin Williamson threatened intervention against institutions. Aren't you worried you're white knighting there a bit, mate? I mean, come on, she is a woman after all. She can fend for herself. We don't need you stepping on people's toes, trying to say that a man needs to intervene to help out a woman. Strong, confident, independent women that they are, after all. So this comes as former Home Secretary Amber Rudd was snubbed by Oxford University, more so the students. Miss Rudd was to speak at Oxford University on Thursday, but the event was cancelled because of protests over her links to the Windrush scandal. So, yes, don't you try and say that you're empowering and are a good influence on people when there's one bad thing that you've done, because it will be found and then will be held against you. Unless you're completely perfect and have achieved something that nobody in history has ever done, except for the fables of Jesus Christ, which is actually just a way for shamans and pagans to hide their uses of psychedelics. But yes, with that aside, him being the perfect man, hence why we know he could never exist, that you're not perfect. Therefore, there will be something bad found out against you, and it will be used against you from now forever, because you can't change the past, and that is all that matters for these people. They do not care about the future, they just care about the wrongdoings of the past, and apparently it's how they're rectifying it in the future. And what are they doing to rectify it? It's just stopping things. That's their solution. So bravo, guys, well done. Your solution to prevent well, I suppose that's it, isn't it? Your solution to prevent anything bad happening is just to prevent anything happening whatsoever. Wait till they find out that entropy is the natural state of all things, and if you don't actually attend to things, they end up in ruin. So universities were yesterday given a final warning to guard free speech or face legislation amid a row over the slumming of Amber Rudd by Oxford students. It is odd to suggest that, yeah, we're going to have more government interventions. Like, to do what? To stop government intervention? Oh, that's very intriguing there, government. I see what you're trying to do. Education Secretary Gavin Williamson threatened intervention against institutions that fail to defend democracy. How rich. He also ordered Oxford University to take robust action over no platforming, the policy of refusing to host particular speakers because they might cause offence. Yeah, we all know that. Also known as cancelling. His threat came as politicians from all parties condemned the treatment of the former Home Secretary as appalling and disgraceful. Yes, she's a woman after all, so it's going to have all parties. God forbid it's one of the many men who've been cancelled and deplatformed. We won't comment on them. Which is why, as cheap as it is unfortunately important for people like Marty Yiannopoulos to mention, oh, his grandma was Jewish, he's gay, and he's married to a black guy. Which, in the grand scheme of things, none of that matters. But because of the people they're going up against, because of the people who actually implement these changes and seem to have the sway and the hold of the Overton Windsor at the moment, you've actually got to mention that utter shit. So hey people, I'm going to have a talk about thoughts, about ideas, about nothing personal, but this is what I think of the wider world. So, okay, brilliant. But before we allow you to have your esoteric intellectual talk, we must ask a few personal questions which have absolutely nothing to do whatsoever with what you're going to say. Are you attracted to men or women? Are you a man or woman? Do your genitals reflect what you say that you are? What colour is your skin, and what colour skin is your partner? And are you Jewish? Which may or may not be a good thing, I'm not sure anymore. We must ask you those questions. They're completely irrelevant to what's being said, and hey, if it was written down and we didn't know who was writing it, we'd probably agree with you. But no, we got to know these things, which is why doxing is so important, of course, because before you try and shut down what someone has said, you've got to understand who they are, because hey, there are no bad tactics, only bad targets. So you have to know who you're going after before you provide the full onslaught of the energy of soy. So Miss God had been invited to speak at Oxford University by a student society on Thursday. Oh, those bloody students again, trying to get free speech. Why I order. But the event was cancelled minutes beforehand because of protests over her links to the Windrush scandal. Here we go again. Her barring came after Oxford historian Professor Selina Todd was blocked from appearing at a feminist festival last weekend following threats from trans rights activists. Yes, and of course it's the same thing what we got from Suzanne Moore writing for The Guardian that has now caused a load of trans people to start a rally against The Guardian, including some people leaving because of problematic. Of course it's problematic, I mean, for fuck's sake. Doesn't matter if it's good or bad, doesn't matter what's happening. Just use the word problematic and hey, you might as well fill out your leftist bingo card there. So Mr. Williams said, for two speakers to have been no platformed at Oxford within a week is unacceptable. It is not enough to adopt free speech codes if they are not enforced. I expect the University of Oxford to take robust action over these incidents, and if universities are not prepared to defend free speech, the government will. No, it fucking won't! And that is shown by saying Lord Patton, Oxford's Chancellor, insisted that institutions do not need government interference. And why is this? Because he says, I'm a passionate believer in free speech, and I'm a passionate believer in the autonomy of universities to run their own affairs. And I can agree with that in principle, but wait for it. Lord Patton condemned the behaviour of students as an appalling way to treat a very distinguished public servant. Doesn't matter, don't care. And insisted the university is committed to freedom of speech under every circumstance, provided the speech is within the law. Yeah, so it's not quite freedom of speech. They're not going to be saying, oh, you're going to hear some racy things here, but here we've got permission because we understand that this could be a bit controversial, so we're going to allow it, but instead it's within the law. And I understand what people are getting at, and they're trying to say that, hey, balls in your court. I mean, that really is what it is, isn't it? To say, oh, the government is saying they're going to defend free speech. It's like, well, hey, we're fine for free speech if it's within the law. So I would say the balls in your court, conservatives. But to be honest with you, your balls are in my fist. Play nice. And that's where we are. That yes, he understands, and that's either a very subtle dig against the government to say, well, hey, you're not actually enforcing free speech, so what the fuck are you on about? Or he's saying, yes, I agree that people shouldn't actually be able to say things, therefore I'm going to say freedom of speech, except because, hey, I put in that exception, but I've already said I believe in freedom of speech, so you can't say I don't believe in freedom of speech, even though I'm now going to explain to you how I don't believe in freedom of speech. Oh yes. So yeah, I believe in freedom of speech, but not for those black people. Well, that's racist. No, but I believe in freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, as long as it's not those black people. It's like, right, you understand what we're getting at. It's the same for you here. Bit of introspection is in order, don't you think? Instead of intellectuals just seeing their bodies as a way to transport their heads around. So, better yet, we've got Alan Rusbridger, former Guardian editor and now principal of Oxford's Lady Margaret Hall, said Amber Rudd has many legitimate questions to answer about her role in the Windrush disgrace. But my plea to Oxford students is, ask them. Disinviting her to speak at the last minute is a terrible missed opportunity, as well as looking rude and blinkered. I don't think they really care about being rude, seeing as they're happy to actually legitimately kill people, just like their forefathers before them. Not in ancestry, but in ideology. And so you're not going to change anything through that. But it is nice to know that once the Whammons are affected, that government might step in. Not that government should really need to step in, but hey, I'm actually all for freedom of speech. So I'm all for this being spread as far and wide as possibly possible. Letting people know that the state that Oxford University has found itself in, has brought upon itself, and then let people decide if they really wish to go there, if they really think that the intersectional ideology of cultural Marxism is going to just stay discreetly tucked away in a little box, or if it's spreading through the humanities and through the idea of transsexuals or transgenders, whatever it might be, seeing as now that only females can menstruate is now transphobic, because instead of saying that you can't change your sex, you can only change your gender, now you can change your sex as well. For fuck's sake! Saying that, just like Julian Castro, let's not forget the trans community that also need free abortions. It's like brilliant. I'll pay for those trans abortions. Why? Because they can't have abortions because they can't get pregnant. So that's fine. But yes, now that the WAMs are affected, the government says they need to step in. But no, just let people know what is happening at Oxford University. If they think that this isn't going to spread into the sciences like it already is, then of course they will continue to apply and be educated there. But if they think that actually there is a problem, then they will not choose to be educated there. They will instead decide to go elsewhere. And with the rise of the internet, although internet censorship is trying to seep itself in, hopefully people like Jordan Peterson will develop their online universities in order to allow people to learn and maybe even get some sort of wider recognition for job applications and the like, given that I would strongly suggest the vast majority of people don't go to university really to learn. They just go there to get a letter or a number, or maybe both, on a bit of paper, or digital now, of course, save the trees, to say that they are eligible for this job and they are better than their peers, instead of saying what experience they have, because that takes too long. Just tick these boxes, just put your number in these boxes, and then we will know if we want to hire you or not. That is the reason people go to university, not for learning, just so they have some sort of understood and invited, welcomed upon degree, so the people want to hire them. So until that changes, we will say, well, okay, at the moment it's gone from degrees being optional to degrees being necessary. I think it will revert to degrees being optional again when people realise that it's utter shit and they don't mean anything. As Tony Blair's initiative of having 50% of young people going to university is obviously useless, because that's not the idea of university. Just extending your childhood isn't worthwhile, and therefore they're not academic institutions anymore. They're just watching children. They're childminders. And really, do you need to be in government-run education for 20 years to be worth more than £5.33 an hour, which is minimum wage? Because if you do, it seems like there's a big problem with the education. So you don't really need to raise minimum wage. You just need to sort out the education. Until people realise that there's a big problem with the education, that ain't gonna change. So what are the options? Well, it's all down to choice, which means you've got to be able to hear different points of view, which means it's back to freedom of speech. But until that's realised, there's not a lot we can do except for, hey, keep talking, keep learning, keep improving yourself, and make each day better than the previous one. So until next time, have a better day than yesterday.